The rain was falling softly against the ancient windows of Greywick Library, its steady rhythm blending with the quiet hum of flickering lanterns. The great stone building, older than the village itself, stood tall on the edge of the cliffs, watching over the restless sea below. Inside, the air smelled of old parchment, polished oak, and a hint of lavender from the dried herbs hung by the caretaker long ago. Tonight, the library was alive in a way only a few could ever sense. The shelves whispered when no one looked, the spines of books seemed to glow faintly as the storm pressed closer, and the fireplace in the reading hall gave off a warmth that reached not just the body, but the soul. It was said that Greywick's library held books that were more than just stories, books that remembered, that dreamed, that breathed. On this rainy night, the library felt like a shelter from the world, a safe harbor of words and wonder. As the candles flickered and thunder rolled in the distance, someone was about to discover a secret hidden between the pages, a secret that would blur the line between story and reality, dream and waking. And so, the night began. Crescent moon sparkles open book. The Keeper of Greywick. The rain fell in silver threads, soft yet unyielding, as if the sky itself wanted to lull the world into quiet sleep. Inside the towering walls of Greywick Library, the storm sounded like a distant lullaby, muffled by the weight of stone and oak. At the heart of the library, in the grand reading hall, an old man moved quietly between the shelves. His name was Alden, the Keeper of Greywick, and though his hair was silver and his steps slow, his eyes sparkled with the kind of curiosity that never fades with age. He carried a lantern that flickered with golden warmth, and wherever its light fell, dust motes shimmered like tiny stars. Alden was not merely a librarian. He was a guardian of secrets, secrets hidden in tomes bound in leather, in scrolls wrapped in faded ribbon, in volumes that hummed softly when touched. Many who visited Greywick believed it was only a place of books, but Alden knew better. The library was alive. As he set a fresh log upon the fire, the flames leapt higher, and the shadows along the walls stretched long and strange. Outside, the rain grew heavier, tapping the windows like curious fingers. And somewhere, in the farthest corner of the library, a book stirred on its shelf, as though waiting to be found. The Whispering Book. The storm deepened, and the lanterns hanging from the high beams swayed gently as if they too listened to the rain. Alden adjusted his spectacles and glanced toward the far corner of the library where the shelves curved into shadows. Something had caught his attention, a faint sound, like paper sighing. He walked slowly, his lantern casting a golden circle of light that moved across the spines of books. Titles glimmered faintly, the songs of forgotten rivers, maps to places that never were, the almanac of eternal stars. He knew them all, for he had spent his life memorizing every corner of Greywick. But tonight, something new was calling. At last, he found it. A book bound in deep midnight blue leather, resting on the shelf as if it had been waiting centuries for a hand to lift it. The edges shimmered faintly, and when Alden touched it, the room seemed to hush. The sound of rain softened, the fire crackled lower, and the very air leaned closer. He opened the cover carefully. The pages glowed with pale silver light, and faint letters appeared, shifting, rearranging, like whispers trying to take form. He could just make out the first line. To those who read these words, know that stories are doors. And tonight, one shall open for you. The storm thundered overhead as Alden drew a slow, steady breath. A door in the page. Alden's hands trembled as he traced the glowing letters. They shifted again, forming words that seemed alive. Every book is a room. Every story, a world. Step gently, and you may pass through. He blinked, certain that fatigue or the storm was playing tricks. Yet when he leaned closer, the silver glow spread, spilling across the page like liquid moonlight. The letters shimmered, and the surface of the parchment rippled as though it were water. The fire behind him crackled, sending shadows stretching tall across the stone walls. Outside, the rain fell harder, steady and relentless, but the sound now seemed distant, as if muffled by another world pressing close. Alden hesitated, then reached out. His fingertips brushed the page, and the sensation was unlike anything he had felt. It was not paper, not ink. It was soft, like mist, cool like rain, yet somehow it pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. The book sighed, a whisper slipping free, "Come in." Alden drew back sharply, his lantern swaying. For a moment, he stood frozen in the silence. Then, with a courage born of endless years spent among mysteries, he pressed his palm flat upon the page. The glow flared, silver, white, endless. The library spun, the shelves and windows melting away. And Alden fell gently forward, into the story. The hall of endless shelves. When the light faded, Alden found himself standing in silence. The air was cool and carried the faint perfume of ink and lavender wax. He looked around, and his heart skipped. He was still in a library, but not the one he knew. The shelves here stretched higher than the eye could follow, vanishing into a sky of mist. Each row glowed softly, books pulsing with gentle light as though alive. The floor beneath his feet was polished marble, veined with silver that shimmered whenever he moved. Lanterns floated in the air like fireflies, drifting down aisles and casting pools of golden light. And in the distance, Alden thought he heard voices, gentle whispers, rising and falling like the rustle of leaves. They seemed to come from the books themselves, each spine humming faintly, like hundreds of small heartbeats. He stepped forward cautiously, his old boots echoing softly. As he reached for a nearby shelf, one book slid forward without being touched. Its cover bore no title, only a faint symbol of a key. Alden brushed the dust away, and the whispering around him stilled, as if the library itself was waiting. The storm outside Greywick was gone. Here, only the quiet magic of endless stories remained. The book with the key. Alden held the book carefully, his lantern casting a trembling glow across the symbol embossed on the cover. The shape was simple yet powerful, a key surrounded by a circle of stars. It felt warm under his fingertips, as though it had been waiting for him alone. With a steady breath, he opened it. The pages shimmered faintly, words written in ink that seemed alive, shifting between gold and silver as his eyes moved. The first line glowed brighter than the rest. One key opens one door, but not every door should be opened. Alden frowned. His pulse quickened as the library around him seemed to lean closer, the floating lanterns gathering near as though eager to see what he would do. He turned another page. This time, a drawing appeared, a tall wooden door, carved with runes he did not recognize. Beneath it, faint letters scrawled themselves into existence as he watched. Find this door, and you shall find the truth of Greywick. At that very moment, a soft creaking echoed through the vast hall. Alden spun around, and his lantern flame flickered wildly. Down one of the misty aisles, a door stood where none had been before. Tall. Silent. Waiting. The door in the mist. The air grew still as Alden stepped toward the door. It stood impossibly tall, its wooden surface carved with the same star-ringed key he had seen in the book. The mist around it shifted gently, curling like breath on a winter's morning. His lantern flickered, casting long shadows across the marble floor. He hesitated, listening. The library was silent now, no whispers from the shelves, no hum of glowing books. Even the floating lanterns had drifted back, as though giving space for whatever was about to happen. Alden's hand shook slightly as he pressed his palm against the wood. It was warm, like the book had been, as though it carried a heartbeat of its own. The carvings glowed faintly, silver veins spreading outward beneath his touch. Then, with a sound like distant thunder, the door creaked open. A faint golden light spilled through the crack, warm and inviting. Alden's heart pounded. He could feel it. This was the threshold the book had spoken of. Slowly, carefully, he stepped inside. Beyond the door was not another hall of shelves. Instead, it was a garden, vast, glowing softly under a sky of endless twilight. Trees with silver leaves rustled in a wind that carried the scent of rain and parchment. And in the center of the garden stood a fountain, its waters shimmering with words instead of ripples. The library of Greywick was far more than Alden had ever imagined. The Garden of Twilight. Alden stepped cautiously onto the soft grass, his lantern swaying gently at his side. The garden stretched out like a dream. Rows of glowing flowers lined the paths, their petals painted with silver light, as if the stars themselves had taken root here. The air was cool and fragrant, filled with the soft murmur of the fountain at the center. He approached slowly. The fountain was unlike anything he had ever seen. Instead of water, streams of glowing letters spilled upward, floating into the air before dissolving into mist. Each letter shimmered briefly, carrying the memory of a word, a sentence, perhaps even a whole story, before vanishing. Alden leaned closer, mesmerized. When he extended his hand, a single glowing word landed on his palm: home. It flickered for a moment, then sank into his skin, filling him with a deep warmth. His chest tightened, not with fear, but with wonder. Behind him, the great wooden door had closed, vanishing into the twilight air. There was no going back, not yet. But Alden felt no panic. Instead, he felt as though he had stepped into the heart of something sacred, something older than time itself. The fountain whispered softly, and for the first time, Alden realized the garden was watching him, waiting to reveal its secrets. The watchful statues. As Alden circled the fountain, he noticed figures standing among the silver-leaved trees. At first, he thought they were travelers, silent and still, but as he drew closer, he saw the truth: statues. Dozens of them. Each was carved from pale stone that glowed faintly in the twilight, their faces serene, their hands gently holding books pressed to their chests. Some looked young, some old, but all of them carried the same expression, a kind of peaceful knowing, as though they had discovered something and then fallen into eternal rest. Alden's breath caught. He touched one of the statues lightly, his fingertips brushing cool stone. Yet beneath the smooth surface, he swore he felt a faint hum, like the heartbeat he had sensed in the door. These statues were not ordinary. They were waiting. The fountain's letters swirled more quickly, words rising into the air and floating toward the statues. Some of the glowing phrases sank into the stone figures, and for a brief moment, Alden thought he saw a statue's eyes flicker with light before dimming again. "Readers," a voice whispered, not aloud, but inside his mind. Alden froze, lantern shaking slightly in his hand. The garden was not empty. It was speaking. The voice of the garden. Alden stood very still, his heart thudding in the quiet twilight. The word had not come from his ears but from somewhere deeper, like a thought that was not his own. "Readers," the voice repeated, soft and calm, as if spoken by the garden itself. The statues seemed to lean closer, their stone books glowing faintly in rhythm with the fountain's shimmering letters. Alden swallowed hard. "Who are you?" he asked aloud, his voice sounding small in the vastness. The fountain rippled. Letters rose higher, spinning into sentences that glowed above the water. "We are the stories. We are the keepers. We are those who entered and chose to stay." A chill passed over Alden's shoulders. He looked again at the statues. Could these have once been people, readers, like himself, who had stepped through the door and never returned? The voice whispered again, gentle but steady, "Every story must be read. Every reader must choose." Alden clutched the midnight blue book tightly in his hands, its key symbol glowing faintly against the twilight air. He understood now, this garden was more than a hidden chamber of the library. It was a place of decisions, of crossing a boundary that could not easily be undone. And the garden was waiting for his choice. The choice of the reader. The air around Alden shimmered with quiet expectancy. The fountain's glowing words spun slowly, like constellations written in water, and the statues stood in silence as guardians of the truth. The midnight blue book in his hand pulsed faintly, the key symbol on its cover glowing brighter with every heartbeat. Alden opened it once more. This time, the letters were steady and clear. To read is to open. To open is to enter. Choose wisely, reader, for each story leads somewhere, and once begun, the tale will not let go. Alden's lantern flickered. The flame seemed nervous, as though it too sensed the weight of this moment. He glanced at the nearest statue. Its face was calm, almost kind, but its eyes, though stone, held the faintest glimmer of silver. Whoever this person had been, they had chosen. They had stepped through their own story, and here they remained. The garden's voice spoke again, gentle as rain, "Will you read, or will you return?" Alden's chest tightened. Return, to the quiet safety of Greywick Library, to his simple duties, to nights spent among shelves that never moved. Or, step forward, into a story that promised mystery, wonder, and perhaps danger. He looked at the fountain. Another word rose from the glowing stream and drifted toward him, hovering before his eyes, "Courage." And Alden knew, his choice was already made. Stepping into the story. Alden closed the midnight blue book, holding it against his chest. The fountain's whispers grew softer, as though the garden was watching his decision with quiet approval. "Courage," he murmured, repeating the word that had floated toward him. It felt warm on his tongue, steadying him. He walked to the fountain's edge. The streams of glowing letters swirled faster now, rising in arcs of silver and gold. Alden bent slightly, peering into the waters. Instead of reflections, he saw images, fragments of places beyond imagining. A forest filled with lantern-like blossoms. A tower whose windows opened into the stars. A river made entirely of light. The words in the fountain twisted together, forming a path of glowing phrases that stretched out before him. It was like stepping stones made of language itself. Alden hesitated only a moment before placing one foot onto the first glowing word. It held his weight, pulsing gently beneath his boot. He stepped again, then again, until he stood in the very center of the fountain. The glowing streams swirled higher, encircling him like a cloak of stories. The garden whispered once more, "Then read, and enter." The words wrapped around him in a brilliant rush of light, and in the blink of an eye, Alden was gone, drawn fully into the story waiting beyond. The Forest of Lantern Blossoms. When Alden opened his eyes, the world was transformed. He stood in a vast forest, its trees tall and ancient, their trunks silver-white like moonlight frozen into wood. The air was hushed, filled with the soft rustle of leaves and the faint crackle of unseen magic. Above him, blossoms glowed like lanterns, suspended from branches that arched gracefully overhead. Each bloom pulsed with gentle light, casting a dreamlike radiance across the forest floor. Alden reached up and touched one. The petals were soft as silk, and for a moment, he thought he heard faint words echoing inside the blossom, like a story whispering only to him. The path beneath his feet was lined with moss that shimmered faintly, guiding him deeper into the woods. His lantern, still in hand, seemed unnecessary here, for the forest itself glowed. Yet the flame flickered anyway, as if unwilling to leave him. In the distance, a river glittered like liquid glass, weaving through the trees. And beside the river stood something strange, an archway of stone, covered in vines, its surface etched with symbols that looked faintly familiar. Alden's heart quickened. He felt it in his bones. The forest was beautiful, but it was also leading him somewhere. Somewhere the story wanted him to go. The stone archway. Alden stepped carefully toward the river, his boots sinking slightly into the soft moss. The glowing blossoms above swayed gently, as though watching him pass. Each one flickered faintly, as if whispering encouragement in a language he could almost, but not quite, understand. The stone archway loomed taller as he approached, its surface worn by time yet alive with faint light. Symbols carved into the stone seemed to shift when he looked directly at them, their shapes bending into letters, then into runes, then into something older still. He reached out, brushing his fingers across the vines that draped the arch. At his touch, they withered away, revealing the carvings more clearly. A circle with stars. A key. The same symbol that marked the midnight blue book. Alden's breath caught. "So it follows me," he whispered. The river beside the arch rippled suddenly, though no wind stirred. For a moment, Alden thought he saw a reflection move across the water, a figure cloaked in shadow, standing beyond the arch. He blinked, but the figure was gone. Only the glow of lantern blossoms remained. The symbols on the arch flared brighter, humming softly, as though the forest itself was urging him onward. The path of the story had not ended, it was only opening wider. With his lantern steady in hand, Alden stepped closer, ready to cross through. The door of echoes. Alden stood before the archway, his lantern's flame trembling as if aware of what lay ahead. The carvings along the stone pulsed with silver light, and the hum that filled the air grew stronger, like a chorus of distant voices layered together. He leaned closer, and the whispers sharpened. Words, clearer now, rose from the stone itself. Every story remembers. Every reader leaves a mark. Step through, and your tale will echo here. A shiver moved through him. The statues in the garden returned to his mind, readers who had chosen and remained. Was this the place where choices were written into eternity? The midnight blue book grew warm in his hand, the symbol of the key glowing brighter than ever. When he opened it, the pages were blank except for a single line of silver script. Your story waits beyond this door. The archway flared. The river's surface turned to liquid light, reflecting not the forest, but endless halls, gardens, and skies beyond imagining. It was a threshold, shimmering and alive. Alden's heart raced. He knew the step he was about to take would carry him deeper, past the point of return. Yet his hands were steady, and his lantern's flame rose taller, as if sharing his courage. With a deep breath, Alden stepped through the archway, and into the echo of his own story. The River of Light. Stepping through the archway, Alden found himself standing at the edge of a vast river. It glowed with radiant brilliance, each ripple carrying not water, but flowing words, sentences and fragments of stories drifting like currents. Some lines shimmered bright and hopeful, others dark and heavy, yet together they moved as one endless stream. The air here was hushed, reverent. The river sang softly, not with notes but with voices, thousands of voices, telling their tales all at once, weaving into a harmony so delicate that Alden felt tears prick his eyes. He knelt at the river's edge and dipped his hand into the glowing current. Words clung to his skin before dissolving into light. One lingered longer than the rest. Seeker. It pulsed against his palm before fading back into the stream. Across the river, he could see faint shapes, bridges of words, paths of light that appeared and disappeared like fleeting thoughts. They shifted constantly, as though waiting for the right choice to be made. The midnight blue book in his hand opened on its own, and new text appeared in shining letters. Every reader must cross. Choose carefully, for the river remembers. The river's glow brightened, and one of the shimmering bridges began to solidify before him, made entirely of golden script. Alden knew it was time to take another step deeper into the story. The bridge of golden script. The bridge shimmered before Alden, each step formed from flowing golden letters that drifted into place, solid for only as long as he trusted them. He hesitated, lantern in one hand, the midnight blue book in the other. The river's soft song rose, as if urging him forward. He placed one boot upon the bridge. The letters beneath his foot flared brighter, steady and strong. When he lifted his lantern higher, he saw that each step carried a word. The first said faith. The second, curiosity. The third, courage. Alden moved slowly, carefully, the river glowing beneath him like liquid starlight. Each time he stepped, another word appeared, spelling a path of qualities that seemed chosen for him. He read them softly under his breath, and they soothed him like an old lullaby. But halfway across, the bridge trembled. The words ahead blurred and scattered, breaking into fragments before reforming again. From the glowing current below, dark shapes rose, shadows without form, moving like ink spilled across water. They whispered in low voices, "Turn back, return, forget." Alden gripped his lantern tighter, its flame burning higher in defiance. He pressed forward, speaking the words beneath his feet louder now: hope, wonder, resolve. Each word shone brighter, pushing the shadows back into the river. Step by step, he continued, until the far bank came into view, glowing softly with promise. The keeper of the bridge. Alden's boots touched the far bank, and at once the golden bridge dissolved into sparks, drifting upward like fireflies before vanishing into the night. He turned, watching as the last shimmer faded into the river. For a moment, silence wrapped around him. Then, from the mist at the edge of the path, a figure appeared. It was cloaked in robes the color of parchment, its face hidden by a hood embroidered with tiny symbols that shifted like living ink. In one hand, it carried a tall staff, and in the other, a lantern that burned with a soft silver flame. "You crossed," the figure said, its voice neither male nor female, but calm and echoing, as if spoken by the library itself. Few dare to step onto the bridge of script. Fewer still reach the other side. Alden swallowed nervously, but stood tall. "Who are you?" "I am the keeper," the figure replied. "I tend the words that bind Greywick together. And I watch those who walk its hidden paths." The lantern's silver flame brightened, spilling across the mist. "The book chose you, Alden. But choice is not without price. Do you seek truth, even if it changes everything you know?" Alden's heart beat fast. He glanced at the glowing midnight blue book in his hands. He could almost feel it pulse, as if waiting for his answer. The keeper's question. The keeper's silver lantern swayed gently, its light painting long shapes across the mist. Alden stood in its glow, the midnight blue book warm in his grasp. The keeper tilted their head slightly. "Every story you read here writes itself upon you. Every truth discovered binds itself to your heart. If you choose to open the next page, you cannot return unchanged. Do you accept this burden?" Alden's throat felt dry, yet his voice came steady. "I've come this far. I can't turn back now." The keeper studied him in silence. The swirling symbols on their hood brightened, forming a single clear word: worthy. A soft smile, though hidden, seemed to touch the figure's presence. They lowered their staff, and the river behind them rippled as if in approval. Then hear this: the door you saw before is only one of many. Each leads to a truth, but not all truths are gentle. Some wound, some heal, and some transform. A gust of wind swept past, carrying the faint scent of parchment and candle smoke. The keeper's lantern flame flared, and suddenly Alden glimpsed a dozen faint doors glowing in the fog, each one carved differently, some tall and narrow, some wide and gilded, some plain as stone. "They will call to you," the keeper said softly. "Choose wisely, for the path you step upon cannot be undone." Alden's chest tightened. The library was no longer just endless shelves of books. It was a labyrinth of choices, each one shaping the story he was becoming. Doors in the mist. The mist around Alden thickened, curling like smoke, but within it, the glowing doors shimmered more clearly. Each seemed alive, humming faintly, as though they breathed. The first door was carved of black oak, runes etched deep into its frame, faint red light leaking from its edges. The second was tall and silver, polished like a mirror, so smooth that Alden could see his own face staring back at him, though the reflection's eyes did not blink. The third looked humble, plain pinewood with a brass handle, like the entrance to a cottage. But from it drifted the smell of fresh bread and warm hearthfire. One by one, more revealed themselves: a door of glass that rippled like water, a door of iron chained shut, a door draped in ivy with tiny blossoms glowing softly. Alden felt the book in his hand pulse, its pages fluttering as if caught in an unseen breeze. The keeper's voice echoed gently. "Not all doors open outward. Some open inward. And some will only open once." The weight of the choice pressed heavily upon him. Which door held knowledge? Which held danger? Perhaps both. He stepped closer, raising his lantern to the plain pine door, heart pulled toward its homely glow. But as he did, the silver mirror door trembled, sending a faint ringing through the air, like it wanted him to notice. Behind him, the keeper's lantern dimmed, leaving the choice entirely his own. The door of reflection. Alden stood frozen between the two strongest calls, the plain pine door with its warmth of home, and the gleaming silver door that rippled like a mirror. His lantern flickered, as though uncertain with him. He lifted the book slightly, and its pages turned without his touch, stopping on a sketch of the silver door. Beneath it, faint words glowed. "To see the truth, you must face yourself." A shiver ran through him. He reached out. The surface of the silver door quivered, sending waves across his reflection. His own face looked back at him, but different, older, tired, eyes shadowed with secrets. For a heartbeat, Alden pulled his hand back. But then the reflection moved on its own. It leaned closer, pressing its palm to the surface of the door. The voice was a whisper, yet it filled the misty hall. "Come closer. You already carry the questions. Here, you will find the answers." Alden's pulse quickened. He pressed his hand against the cool silver surface. It rippled beneath his touch like water, and suddenly the door yawned open with a soundless sigh. The reflection smiled faintly before vanishing, and darkness swallowed the space beyond. Lantern in one hand, book in the other, Alden took a step forward and crossed the threshold. The Hall of Echoes. The air on the other side was colder, sharper, as if Alden had stepped into the breath of the night itself. His lantern's flame flared nervously, casting long beams across a vast corridor. The walls here were not lined with shelves but with mirrors, tall, narrow, endless. Each mirror reflected him, but not as he was. One showed a child Alden, clutching a wooden toy and smiling with innocent wonder. Another showed him older, weary and weathered, his eyes lined with years of secrets carried alone. A third showed him in robes not his own, standing among towering stacks of books, his face both curious and burdened. The reflections whispered, though none moved their lips. Their voices threaded together like wine through broken glass. You are the reader. You are the keeper. You are the question, and the answer. Alden's chest tightened. He lifted the book, and as he did, the mirrors pulsed, their glass shimmering with light. Each reflection leaned closer, pressing palms against the surface, as if reaching for him. The hallway stretched ahead into shadow, and somewhere far in the distance, he thought he heard footsteps, steady, deliberate, coming closer. He gripped his lantern tighter. Was it his own echo? Or something waiting for him in the dark? The other footsteps. The echo of footsteps grew clearer with each passing second, steady and deliberate. Alden froze, his lantern casting nervous gleams across the endless mirrors. He turned, but each reflection showed him standing alone, no shadowy figure, no pursuer. Yet the sound was undeniable. Tap. 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 He lifted the midnight blue book, its pages fluttering open of their own accord. The ink rearranged itself into a single line. What follows you may not be what hunts you. The words made little sense, but they steadied his breath. He pressed forward, lantern raised high. The footsteps matched his pace exactly, as though mocking him. He stopped, the sound stopped. He walked again, it walked with him. Then, one mirror quivered. Its surface rippled like water, and Alden's reflection stepped forward, not out of the glass, but closer within it, as though alive. The reflection raised its lantern and its book in perfect unison with him, but when Alden paused, the reflection did not. It took one step closer. The glass groaned, spiderweb cracks spreading outward, glowing faintly as though lit from within. The footsteps were no longer echoes, they were coming directly from the mirror. Alden's pulse hammered. Was his reflection trying to cross over? When the mirror breaks. The mirror shuddered violently, the cracks spreading like lightning. Alden stumbled back, his lantern flame flaring bright against the dark corridor. His reflection was no longer mimicking him, it was moving freely, pressing both hands against the glass with desperate force. With a sound like ice fracturing on a frozen lake, the mirror split open. Shards of glowing glass rained down, yet none cut him. Instead, they hovered in the air like weightless stars. From the broken surface stepped his reflection. It looked exactly like him, same boots, same cloak, same wide eyes, but its lantern burned black, its book bound in shadows instead of midnight blue. Its voice was soft, eerily calm. You seek answers. So do I. But truth is not big enough for two. The figure tilted its head, as though studying Alden. The mirrored lantern flickered, casting cold light across the hall of echoes. The other reflections along the corridor quivered, some shrinking back, others pressing their palms eagerly to their glass prisons as though urging the two figures forward. Alden tightened his grip on his lantern, his flame glowing warmer, brighter, in defiance of the shadow's chill. The corridor seemed to lean closer, waiting. Two versions of the same soul now stood face to face. The shadowed self. The air grew heavier, thick with the weight of silence. Alden's shadow double raised its black lantern, and the flame inside twisted like smoke, casting a darkness that clung to the mirrors. Where Alden's own lantern gave warmth and clarity, this one seemed to steal color from the world, draining the corridor into shades of gray. The shadow spoke again, its tone calm but edged with hunger. You carry light, I carry dark. We are the halves of the same tale. One must fade, or the story cannot continue. Alden's heart pounded, but something within the book pulsed gently in his hand, reminding him that not all battles were fought with blades or fire. He steadied his breath, letting the warm glow of his lantern spread wider. The shadow recoiled slightly, as if irritated by the brightness. Its black flame hissed. The mirrors lining the hall began to flicker between images. Some showed Alden triumphing, others showed him failing, crumbling into the same darkness that stood before him. What do you want from me? Alden asked firmly. The shadow tilted its head, lips curving into a faint smile. Not from you. Of you. I am the weight you deny, the doubts you bury, the truths you fear. Let me take the book. Let me carry the burden. The midnight blue book throbbed hotter in his grasp, as if it knew the choice ahead was dangerous. The hall waited, mirrors humming, shadows stretching, the shadowed self. The air grew heavier, thick with the weight of silence. Alden's shadow double raised its black lantern, and the flame inside twisted like smoke, casting a darkness that clung to the mirrors. Where Alden's own lantern gave warmth and clarity, this one seemed to steal color from the world, draining the corridor into shades of gray. The shadow spoke again, its tone calm but edged with hunger. You carry light, I carry dark. We are the halves of the same tale. One must fade, or the story cannot continue. Alden's heart pounded, but something within the book pulsed gently in his hand, reminding him that not all battles were fought with blades or fire. He steadied his breath, letting the warm glow of his lantern spread wider. The shadow recoiled slightly, as if irritated by the brightness. Its black flame hissed. The mirrors lining the hall began to flicker between images. Some showed Alden triumphing, others showed him failing, crumbling into the same darkness that stood before him. What do you want from me? Alden asked firmly. The shadow tilted its head, lips curving into a faint smile. Not from you. Of you. I am the weight you deny, the doubts you bury, the truths you fear. Let me take the book. Let me carry the burden. The midnight blue book throbbed hotter in his grasp, as if it knew the choice ahead was dangerous. The hall waited, mirrors humming, shadows stretching. The refusal. Alden's grip on the midnight blue book tightened. Its cover glowed faintly, as though answering the shadow's demand before he could. He felt a surge of warmth radiating from it, comforting, protective, alive. I won't give it to you, Alden said, his voice steadier than he expected. This book chose me. It isn't yours to carry. The shadow's black lantern flickered, its flame writhing like a cornered serpent. Its eyes, so like his own, yet void of warmth, narrowed. Then you choose pain. You choose to walk burdened when I could walk unchained. The mirrors along the corridor shuddered violently, each reflection whispering in waves, choose, choose, choose. Some echoed Alden's words, others the shadows, their voices overlapping until the hall rang with indecision. Alden lifted his lantern higher, its golden flame pushing back against the gray. If I give this up, I give up myself. I am not whole without my questions, my doubts, my light, and my darkness. But I will not surrender my story to you. For the first time, the shadow faltered. The black lantern dimmed, its flame sputtering as though threatened by Alden's resolve. The book in Alden's hand grew warmer still, its pages fluttering open to reveal glowing script. The one who refuses to divide shall pass. The corridor trembled, the mirrors glowing brighter, awaiting the clash, or the union, that would decide what came next. The lanterns collide. The shadow's lips curled into something between anger and sorrow. It stepped closer, black lantern raised high, its flame twisting violently. The air between them crackled, hot and cold at once, as though the corridor itself braced for impact. Alden did not back away. He lifted his own lantern, its golden flame swelling until it filled the Hall of Echoes with a warm, defiant glow. The two lights, gold and black, met in the mist, clashing like waves of night and dawn. When they touched, the mirrors shattered. Not into silence, but into music, shards ringing like bells as they floated upward, each piece glowing with reflected memories. Alden saw flashes of his own life, the boy who dreamed by candlelight, the seeker of stories, the wanderer who entered Greywick on a rainy night. He also saw darker moments, the fears he tried to forget, the mistakes he had buried. The shadow staggered, its lantern hissing as cracks spread through its glass. "You can't hold both," it snarled, voice shaking. "Light and dark together will tear you apart." But Alden's flame only grew brighter. "Maybe they'll tear me apart. Or maybe they'll make me whole." The black lantern split with a piercing cry, spilling shadows that dissolved into the air like smoke at sunrise. The shadow self cried out, not in rage, but in release, before breaking into fragments of starlight that swirled around Alden and vanished into the mist. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the corridor itself seemed to sigh, relieved. Alden lowered his lantern, chest heaving, the golden flame calm once more. He was alone again, but stronger. The gift of the mirrors. The broken mirrors that once lined the hall did not fall into ruin. Instead, their fragments hovered in the mist, glowing like soft stars, each one pulsing faintly with memory. Alden watched as they drifted toward him, slow and gentle, until they circled his lantern flame. Each shard reflected a part of him, some bright with laughter, some heavy with sorrow, others quiet with unspoken dreams. The lantern drank them in. The golden flame flickered, then steadied, now richer, deeper, threaded with silver sparks. For the first time, Alden felt its warmth flow into his chest as though the flame were part of him. The book in his hand opened with a flutter, pages turning until a line appeared, glowing brighter than the rest. To know yourself is the first key. With it, doors will open that never yield to force. The mist ahead cleared, revealing a wide archway carved from stone, its surface covered in runes that shimmered faintly, as though testing him. The keeper's voice echoed faintly through the distance, neither near nor far. "You have crossed the echoes. You carry what was broken, now whole. Step forward, Alden, if you dare." He raised his lantern, feeling its warmth steady his breath, and walked toward the waiting archway. The archway of runes. The stone archway loomed above Alden, runes glowing faintly across its surface like veins of light. Each symbol pulsed as if alive, shifting and rearranging when his lantern's glow touched them. He stepped closer, and the midnight blue book in his hand stirred again, fluttering open to a page where the same runes danced across the parchment. The symbols shimmered, aligning themselves with those carved into the arch. Alden traced one rune with his fingertip. The stone warmed beneath his touch, and the archway hummed softly, resonating with the flame of his lantern. The book revealed a line of text, its letters forming as he read. The door yields not to strength, but to the name it knows. Alden frowned. A name? He whispered. The runes glowed brighter, and for a moment, the arch seemed to lean closer, waiting. A memory stirred in his mind, his shadow self's final words, the whispers of the mirrors, the keeper's question, "Do you seek truth, even if it changes everything you know?" The air thickened with silence. His lantern's flame bent toward the arch as though urging him to speak. Heart pounding. Alden drew a breath and whispered his own name. The runes flared at once, brilliant gold flooding the stone. The archway trembled, and the mist beyond peeled back, revealing a spiral staircase of light descending into the depths of Greywick. The spiral descent. The staircase glowed softly, its steps made of woven light, as though starlight had solidified into form. Alden hesitated only a moment before placing his foot on the first step. It held firm, warm beneath his boots, and pulsed gently like a heartbeat. Lantern in one hand, book in the other, he began the descent. The mist closed above him, muffling the echo of his steps until only the steady rhythm of his breathing filled the air. The deeper he went, the quieter the world became, until silence itself felt alive, watching him. Along the walls of the spiraling shaft, faint murals appeared, glowing when touched by his lantern's flame. They told stories in flowing images, the founding of Greywick Library, the scribes who dedicated their lives to preserving forgotten knowledge, the keepers who guarded doors that should never be opened. But as Alden descended further, the murals changed. He saw darker scenes, books chained shut, readers lost in endless pages, doors swallowing those unready to pass through. The book in his hand pulsed again, pages fluttering until one stopped, revealing words that glowed like embers. Not all who seek the library's heart return, but all are changed. A chill coursed through him. Yet with each step, his resolve grew steadier. At last, the spiral staircase ended at a great circular chamber, vast and silent, with a single pedestal at its center. Upon it rested another book, larger, older, bound in leather blackened by time. The book on the pedestal. The chamber was immense, its ceiling lost in shadows. The air was thick with the smell of old parchment and candle wax, though no candles burned here. The only light came from Alden's lantern and the faint glow of the pedestal at the center of the room. Upon it lay a book unlike any he had ever seen. Its cover was bound in cracked black leather, etched with faded silver glyphs that pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat. Chains once bound it, but they now hung loose, broken long ago. Alden stepped closer. The midnight blue book in his hand shivered, its pages fluttering as though in warning or recognition. He reached out cautiously. The closer he came, the stronger the weight in the air grew, pressing against his chest, his thoughts, even his breath. When his fingertips brushed the ancient leather, a jolt shot through him, lantern light flickering wildly. The pedestal trembled, and the book opened of its own accord. Pages turned, faster and faster, until they stopped on one glowing sheet. Words burned across the parchment. To hold me is to hold the library's heart. But beware, knowledge without balance consumes. The chamber walls groaned, the murals carved into the stone shifting, showing images of readers clutching the black book, their forms dissolving into shadows. Alden swallowed hard. His lantern flame bent toward the book, as though urging him to claim it. The midnight blue volume pulsed in his other hand, as if begging him to resist. He stood caught between two choices, the heart of Greywick before him, and the book that had carried him this far. The two books. Alden stood in the vast chamber, the glow of his lantern caught between two powers, the midnight blue book, warm and alive in his left hand, and the blackened tome on the pedestal, heavy with promise and dread. The silence pressed in, broken only by the faint whisper of turning pages, though neither book moved. It was as if the very library breathed, waiting for his choice. The black book seemed to draw him forward. Its glyphs pulsed with a rhythm that matched his heartbeat, each throb louder, harder to ignore. He felt it call to him, not with words, but with certainty, all knowledge, all truth. No more questions left unanswered. But the midnight blue book pulsed back, softer yet steadier, like a friend's hand holding his. Its warmth carried the echo of his journey, the golden bridge, the keeper's voice, the shadow he had faced and overcome. It whispered not of answers, but of balance. Alden's mind raced. To claim the black book might grant him every secret hidden in Greywick, but its weight had broken others before him. To refuse it meant choosing mystery, humility, and perhaps safety, but at the cost of walking away from truth so close at hand. The lantern flame quivered, caught between light and shadow. And in that moment, Alden realized, it was not only the books that were choosing, it was the library itself. The choice of flame. The golden lantern flame flickered wildly, bending first toward the black tome, then back toward the midnight blue book, as if torn between hunger and hope. Alden's chest tightened. He realized this was not just a choice of books, it was a choice of what kind of seeker he wished to become. He stepped closer to the pedestal. The black tome's chains rattled faintly, though no hand touched them. Its glyphs glowed brighter, spilling harsh silver light that made the shadows stretch long across the chamber. His fingers trembled as he reached toward it. The midnight blue book pulsed in his other hand, opening to a page he had not yet seen. Its script glowed softly. To carry all truth is to carry no self. To carry questions is to carry the flame. Alden froze. His lantern flared, brighter than ever before, casting the chamber in warmth. The shadows recoiled, and the glyphs on the black tome hissed as if scorched. For the first time, Alden understood, the books were not separate, they were reflections of one another, light and dark, bound to balance. Slowly, deliberately, he placed the midnight blue book upon the pedestal beside its darker twin. The room trembled. The chains of the black book dissolved into dust, and the two volumes slid together, their covers pressing until they merged into a single tome, half midnight blue, half black, the glyphs and runes weaving into harmony. The lantern flame steadied, calm and strong, no longer wavering. Alden felt the chamber exhale, as though Greywick itself had been waiting for someone to choose balance, not power. The merged tome. The merged book rested upon the pedestal, its cover now shimmering with both shadow and starlight. It looked impossibly ancient and yet newly born, as if Greywick itself had just written it into existence. Alden stood transfixed, the lantern flame casting soft golden light across the dual-colored tome. When he reached out, the surface felt warm beneath his fingertips, alive with a steady hum, like the heartbeat of the library itself. The pages rustled on their own, opening to reveal words written in both ink and glowing silver fire. The script read, "Knowledge is neither curse nor blessing, but a mirror. To look upon it is to see yourself." As Alden read, the library shifted around him. The rain outside softened, no longer a relentless drum but a gentle lullaby. The shelves seemed taller, brighter, and less foreboding. Even the whispers in the dark corridors turned quiet, as if listening. Then came a voice, not whispered, but resonant, echoing from the very stones of Greywick. "You have done what few before you could. You have chosen wholeness over hunger, balance over possession. The library remembers." A golden key appeared upon the pedestal beside the tome, its shape delicate yet strong, carved with the same glyphs that now glowed on the book. Alden picked it up, and the weight felt familiar, as though it had always been his. For the first time since entering Greywick, he felt the library was no longer a labyrinth meant to test him, but a home waiting to be known. The library's gift. Alden stood silently, the golden key warm in his palm. The rain continued its gentle rhythm against the high-arched windows, a song of serenity instead of warning. The shelves around him glowed faintly, their spines lined with thousands of stories, each pulsing with a heartbeat of its own. He felt an urge to turn the key, but the question was, where? Then, almost instinctively, his eyes were drawn to a massive door at the far end of the central hall. He was certain it had not been there before. The door was carved of dark oak, its surface inlaid with silver filigree shaped into constellations. At its center was a small, circular lock that seemed to beckon to him. With slow steps, Alden approached, the sound of his boots muffled by the velvet rug beneath. He slid the key into the lock. It turned smoothly, as though the door had been waiting for this very moment. The door swung open soundlessly. Beyond lay not another hall of shelves, but an open courtyard, bathed in starlight. The sky stretched endlessly, galaxies swirling above in vibrant hues of violet and gold. In the center stood a fountain, its waters flowing upward instead of down, sparkling like liquid crystal. The library had given him more than knowledge. It had given him access to its heart, a place where imagination and reality intertwined. Alden stepped forward, realizing that the true gift of Greywick was not the book, nor the key, but the freedom to wander through infinite doors of wonder, forever. The dreaming library. Alden stood beneath the endless stars of Greywick's hidden courtyard, the air filled with a gentle hush as if the universe itself held its breath. The fountain's crystal waters shimmered upward, scattering light across his face. He closed his eyes, letting the sound of rain from the distant windows blend with the cosmic silence around him. In that moment, he realized that Greywick was not simply a library of books, it was a library of dreams. Every story written, every memory whispered into its shelves, was alive, waiting to be discovered. The library had chosen him, not as a guardian of secrets, but as a dreamer who could carry its magic into the world beyond. He turned back toward the door, the golden key still glowing faintly in his hand. As he stepped through, the great oak panels closed softly behind him, sealing the courtyard in eternal starlight. The halls of Greywick now felt like a friend's embrace rather than a maze. The lantern light flickered gently, guiding him to a velvet armchair beside the grand fireplace. Alden sat, opening the merged tome on his lap. As the rain whispered against the glass, his eyes drifted shut. The words glowed softly on the page, weaving themselves into his dreams. And so, on that rainy night in the library of Greywick, he did not merely fall asleep, he drifted into the heart of stories themselves, where every dream became a doorway, and every doorway led back to the quiet magic of Greywick. The library would remain, eternal and waiting, for the next dreamer who dared to listen to the rain.